Okay. Well, good afternoon, and I want to thank everyone for coming here today. We wanted to bring people together because this is obviously a very serious time whenever you get reports of a potential snowfall and ice on the roads, and it's critical that people are prepared and handle things the right way. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on that today and field questions you have. But I also wanted to start with a focus on the past week. This has been a terrific week for West Virginia. A lot of success on economic development. I want to give credit to the legislature for all their good work. I want to make sure people know a lot of projects started in the past. We helped bring them across the line. There's plenty of credit to go around. But the numbers we're now looking at are $6.5 billion in private sector investment since October alone. This is before we get to data centers and many other initiatives we're working on. We're excited, and this makes it one of the single best stretches ever in West Virginia history in terms of producing jobs, in terms of really addressing a lot of the core challenges that our citizens face from an affordability perspective. So I'm thrilled about what we're doing, but we're not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to keep working to make sure that every West Virginia benefits from all the hard work that we're doing. And these were big announcements. We had the gas plant, and we know that that's really terrific up in Moundsville, and of course Frontieras, and the opportunities to take advantage of the wonderful coal that we mine in the ground. That's big as well. And what's really interesting about it is the success we're having on the construction side. There are so many new jobs that are coming to the fore on construction. If you're a sheet metal worker, if you're a contractor, if you're an electrician, if you're a plumber, if you're in the VOTEC area, West Virginia is going to be building like never before. I said that at the State of the State. We anticipate we're going to have a need for another 15 to 20,000 people in this space. We have to make sure that we're spending the next 60 days focusing on having people ready through our universities, our technical colleges, and also luring more people in from outside the state. I think that's important. But a lot of success, a lot more to come, and I want to thank everyone for the terrific week. Now, as you know, as we head into the weekend, we're facing the potential for a very significant winter storm event. I have issued a state of preparedness to get all of the agencies ready, and we've been coordinating closely with counties, emergency management, and having all of our departments ready to go as we expect to get some very difficult weather conditions. Now, there's still some evolving with respect to projections about the weather, so I'm not here to give you an exact forecast. I am not a meteorologist, but what I can tell you is that we want to make sure that we're on top of it and we're ready, whether it's work with the Department of Highways, whether it's our emergency management system coordinating with the counties, or anyone involved in ensuring that people who are in need get access to the help that they deserve. I want to let people know that we have a 211 number that's out there. If you have questions and you want to learn more about what's going on locally, or you want to be put in contact with your local emergency management department, you can reach out to 211. And I believe we have that. Annie, do we have that up there?
That's the non-emergency line for counties.
All right, I'm going to step out for a minute. I'm going to see what we have. Yes. So this is the non-emergency line for counties that people can reference if they go to the website, but also you call 211, you're going to be able to get help you need. That's important. If you're talking about a warming center, or you want to know where the food banks and the food pantries are located, where there are challenges coming with utilities, we think it's critical to have that one-stop shop in place, and I want to let people know about that. All week, there's been a lot of collaboration between state agencies, local emergency managers, public safety officials, utilities, and community organizations. Can point out that this morning, local emergency management directors from across the state met to check in on operational needs, review resource availability, and really engage in planning. It's important to plan and prepare before these storms. At 10 o'clock this morning, there were statewide and regional briefings on the weather, and this once again allows your emergency management and a lot of our officials to review the latest weather models so we can deploy our resources the right way. In addition to the efforts on the part of state government and local, there are representatives from non-governmental, voluntary, and community organizations that are meeting to discuss readiness related to food banks, shelters, and crisis response plans, working on those. If they are needed, they're going to be available, they're going to be ahead of the curve planning for these events. I think these partnerships are critical because you really don't know what's going to happen during these long, cold, wintry events. I know that the goal that I have today is to make sure that the public is very informed of not only what may be coming, but some of the things that they need to be looking out for and the things that are being done to prepare for the storm. We know that we've spent time talking with our state emergency response team, and I'm prepared to activate them. They're in a state of preparedness, but I'm prepared to activate them to be fully online. I expect that we will have a very aggressive staffing throughout the weekend on that, but we'll update you further. We're going to make sure that the state is prepared for this. Also, as people are traveling, we want them to understand that there could be some very difficult conditions. We know that in different parts of the state, there are a forecast for snow. It can range, depending upon where you are, from 3 to 7 inches. But also importantly, there might be a line where it's wintry snow and icy mix. And that could create a very dangerous cocktail that we want people to avoid partaking in. We want to make sure that people are really aware of what's happening on the ground. And then we're, of course, going to do everything we can as the snow and the ice fall. We have some recommendations for folks who are watching, and we urge you to prepare and take advantage of those, because there are some simple steps that the public can take to significantly reduce risk and keep yourself and your family safe. First, we're asking everyone to review their emergency supplies for both their homes and their vehicles. It's important to be prepared and to take the time today to go to the stores, make sure you're getting everything ready. Make sure you have the essentials on hand. And that, of course, includes food and water, medications, blankets, batteries. Also, if you rely on medical equipment that needs power, this is now the time to prepare your backup plan. We think you should check your smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors to make sure they're working properly. And we also know during these times we see home-related incidents sometimes on the rise, and so functioning detectors can certainly be beneficial. We're also urging you to refuel your vehicles. Get them ready, because we know that's important. Especially if you get stuck in a snowstorm, you want to make sure you have the adequate fuel to come out. Of course, we want people to remember their pets and take advantage of the time to make sure if they're outside a lot that they have the ability to come back indoors. There's so much that has to be done, and we're going to publish a lot of this online for people to take advantage of. But if you do prepare and you're following the weather forecast closely, you're going to avoid worst outcomes, and we think that's critical. It is important that you make sure you have the ability to get emergency alerts. Those are very important, especially dealing with utilities. We've passed laws in the past. I think last year I signed into law something where a utility during difficult time or during shutdowns has to notify the public. That's important. You may be getting some of those notices online. We urge you to pay attention to that, but also to look out for your neighbors. Some of the elderly who may need some extra help, we want to make sure we're all watching out for our fellow neighbors. We are asking people to watch their travel. Without knowing all of the future conditions, it's important for people to pay attention, because while we have unclear amounts of snow coming, we do believe that the ice could be very dangerous along the roads. And of course, we also want to let people know if there are generators, make sure you operate them outside the home, at least 20 feet away to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. So we want to make sure that you're getting prepared for this storm and also for any of the conditions in the winter. And also, once again, if you need help, reach out to that 211 number and get the assistance that you need, because it's better to be prepared than get stuck in a really bad place. Our priority is keeping West Virginians safe, and if there's a life-threatening emergency, you can call 911, and obviously if you need the help generally, call the 211 number. But the actions you take, they can really save lives. So I'm glad to be here today. I think this is really important that we get everyone prepared, and I'm happy to field any questions that you may have.
Have you all done any determination on where the snow and ice line is going to be? Are you looking at any particular area? I think the power outage would be the most significant.
Well, we know that there's some variation, that there's some areas that may get a little bit of the fluffier snow, and then there are some lines where it might be a little bit more icy. That seems to be evolving, so as we get more information, we'll let people know. But based upon a weather map that I just recently read, there is some variation about the amount of precipitation. Obviously, as you get out to the more mountainous areas, out east, some of the accumulation may be a little bit higher, and so we're looking closely at that. But we do believe that this wintry mix could be potentially dangerous for the entire state because it is sweeping through, and so we think everyone might get some mix of that snow and that ice, and that does make it disconcerting. But as we get more information, we'll let you know, and obviously we urge people to check in for weather within their area, which can vary across the state.
Yes, and West Virginians might be thinking back to the 2009 storm that caused a lot of havoc, especially on the turnpike.
Yeah.
Is there any plan for those gates to be open during this, or is there any plan at all for the turnpike?
So I know that we're conferring closely with Department of Highways, and we're reaching out, and certainly that includes the turnpike as well. We want to do everything we can to open it up. If we do end up going in that direction, what we'll do is we'll alert the public well in advance. And so I'm asking my team, as they're coordinating with DOH and Turnpike, to make sure that happens. The key will be, if that happens, we'll be alerting people very, very quickly. Bob, Rick?
Are you urging people to avoid travel during the peak of this thing?
We are. We think that this is not a good time to go out and travel. Stay off the roads if you can. Look, prepare in advance if you can today. Get ready. But this is supposed to be a pretty problematic storm, and I've talked to enough people to know that these are the kinds of situations that could really hurt a lot of people if you're not prepared. And when you have that icy cocktail, that can cause power outages to go out. And when the weather is very, very cold, this could be a real issue. So I think staying inside is best, but making sure you have a plan and you're watching out for your neighbors is critical too. Hey.
And hello. I was wondering, you said that the National Guard is prepared.
Yeah.
How are you? Is there going to come a time when you feel you need to activate them, or what will that look like in order to activate
Yeah,
them?
so I've spoken to General Seward. He is standing by. So right now we're in a state of preparedness. If needed, I will activate the Guard to get their assistance. But, we're going to keep monitoring it. But they're ready. They're ready to go. But we have to evolve. Today, it's Friday midday, and we're going to watch. I know that as the storm continues to get closer, we may get more accurate information in terms of what the accumulation or mix looks like. But General Seward has indicated he's ready, his team is ready to spring into action as needed. So we'll make that call as the circumstances warrant it. Any other questions?
Can I change the subject?
Well, I knew you would. Go ahead, sure.
It looks like we're getting into what might be another CPS forest situation in Taylor County in Grafton. We have a 11-year-old child, severely malnutrition.
Yeah.
About 5 weeks after a CPS visit, and it's not clear whether the appropriate actions were taken or not. This death occurred in February of 2025, after some of these other incidents, when we kind of all looking into that?
We are, the Department of Human Services has opened up an investigation, and we're looking at all the details around it. And I think as they go through that process, they want to be diligent. I'm proud of a lot of things they're doing because we're trying to make sure we're getting ahead of it. You may know that we instituted many changes beginning last summer, I believe, June, July, in terms of some of the information and the training systems that would be put in place, and also how things are going to get reported. So, Bob, I want to make sure when I get back to you, I can have all the information available from that investigation. But one thing I can tell you is that, number one, there always needs to be accountability in situations like this. If there's a terrible action, we know that there's already been a criminal complaint filed, and that's very important. And second, we know that there was another child that was in the house that after they were notified, that person got removed from that house. In terms of all the details, as that becomes available, Bob, we're going to share with you, but I want to do it when we have the right information to give you something that you can rely on. But this is the reason why, when I took over, we wanted to make sure that we're doing all these changes and reforms, and we have been instituting them. I know that it's going to take some time for everything to take root, but I think we are doing a lot of things very differently than we did in the past, and I think that's important to note.
One more. In your state of the state
Yeah.
and in our conversation today afterwards, you called for a 10%
Yeah.
reduction in the income tax, but the written proposal presented to the legislature by the administration is 5%. Can you kind of resolve
Absolutely.
that?
No, I'm actually, Bob, I'm really glad you asked that, because what we've done, it makes a lot of common sense, but a couple people kind of tried to twist it into something else. So what we did is that we did a lot of really hard work in our budget. We've made a lot of the really difficult decisions to be fiscally responsible. Some of the spending discipline that we exercise, the changes to show the improvement in the long-term financial structure for the state. That's a lot of the hard work that we did, and we're really proud of that and proud of what we were able to work with the legislature on. So what we did is we said, look, we've made a lot of really difficult decisions, and we put 5% into the base. But then, knowing the importance of having deeper tax cuts to address affordability issues, high power bills, price of groceries, and everyday families struggling to make ends meet, I said, look, what we really need is a 10% tax cut, income tax cut. I'm convinced we can get there. That extra resources, I want to collaborate with them, work with them, rather than just try to dictate as to what the executive wants. We figured we helped a lot by making really difficult decisions for the first 5%, but we want to collaborate with them in terms of offsets and other changes to then put it into income tax reductions, which we think are the broadest, most effective way to help the most amount of families in the state. It'll help increase affordability, and it also helps us stay more competitive with the other states that we touch. So I'm glad I've had a chance. I've been talking with different members, and when we talk more about it, we're getting increasing amount of support behind it. And obviously the legislature has their prerogatives and we have ours, and we're looking forward to collaborating. So that was really a message of collaboration for the legislature, and I'm excited to do that, because while there's certain things I may want to do, there are things that they want to do. So we're going to collaborate with them, and I'd love to be able to see that 10%. So I'm glad you asked that, and I hope everyone understands that we need a 10% tax cut, but let's work together to make that happen, to make the changes we need to provide real relief, real affordability to the citizens that are hurting.
Do
Hey.
you have any comment on the situation going on in Hancock County schools with the state facility?
I know that the House had passed some legislation. We're planning to look at that. We know that the Senate is going to evaluating that as well. I can tell you this, there are a lot of problems with our schools, and I've said that I do think that it's important that we are looking at the school aid formula, whether that happens now or happens in a special session. I think it has to be thoughtful, though, and it has to be looking, but right now we have to make progress on what's going on in our schools. There are too many problems that keep cropping up, and school districts that keep getting taken over. So there's something fundamental that we need to do to change and improve our schools. And so I'm very open to having those conversations about the school aid formula and making sure that our kids are going to school in the best environment possible. So I'm going to be looking closely at that bill that passed the House, and I know that there may be some perspectives in the Senate about how to do that as well, and certainly open-minded as I go through the process. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank everyone for coming. We will be in close touch over the weekend as circumstances arise. If there's additional weather or information that we want to provide, we'll let you know. I know I'm around this weekend, and I'm going to be watching the weather and staying on top of it as much as you are. But we do urge people to exercise caution and to take care of themselves.